The California Delta, America's largest and most important Pacific Coast estuary, is in decline. What is causing the crisis and what steps need to be taken to improve the health of the estuary while maintaining a reliable water supply are the subject of much greater debate and discussion. Scientific studies and reports continue to acknowledge that invasive species, declining food availability, toxic contaminants, urban wastewater and stormwater discharges, and unscreened in-delta diversions have all had serious effects on delta fisheries. But little has been done to address these stressors. One of the delta's native fish species, the delta smelt, is often referred to as a bellwether species for the estuary. The 2-inch long silvery smelt only lives for 1 to 2 years, and its population has varied widely over the past 4 decades. In recent years, the smelt has experienced a rapid decline that continues to puzzle experts. Most experts now believe that a complex and long list of stressors or factors contribute to the decline of the delta smelt and other species in the estuary. One important piece of the delta puzzle has been the use of private, unscreened, and unregulated in-delta diversions, like the one shown here. Largely unregulated as to the impacts on the delta ecosystem, over 2,000 agricultural pumps divert large quantities of water directly from the delta waterways and pose a significant threat to endangered and threatened species. Since they are not closely monitored, their total impact on critical fisheries is largely unknown. Although each individual in-delta diversion is small in comparison to the size of the federal and state pumps, collectively, it's estimated that they can divert water at nearly half the rate of the state and federal water projects combined. Another major influence on the estuary is water exported for municipal use. The delta is centered in one of the fastest growing areas in California. Growing communities throughout Northern California are increasingly diverting water that would otherwise flow through the delta. In addition to cities in Southern California, the San Joaquin Valley, and the Central Coast, the Greater Bay Area is largely dependent on the delta as a source of drinking water. A full 87% of municipal water used in the East Bay is diverted from or transported across the delta. In addition, the city of San Francisco actually diverts most of its water upstream of the delta, using a peripheral conveyance system to redirect fresh water around the estuary to meet the city's needs. In addition to pumping water out of the delta, urban populations also dump treated wastewater back into delta waterways. Each day, hundreds of separate individual sources, mostly city and county wastewater treatment facilities, discharge as much as 235 million gallons of treated sewage and wastewater upstream and in the heart of the delta. Recent studies have shown that the ammonia levels in the delta have shifted the nutrient balance in the waters, which has had devastating effects on delta smelt and other pelagic fish that rely on certain types of algae and zooplankton as essential parts of their diets. The major source of this ammonia has been the Sacramento Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant, which on average discharges 14 tons of ammonia into the Sacramento River every day. This accounts for 99% of all ammonia discharged to the estuary. Due to efforts by the Coalition for a Sustainable Delta and other delta interests, the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board recently adopted a new operating permit that will require Sac Regional to clean up its ammonia discharges. Along with wastewater discharges from urban populations along the delta, the waterways also drain large quantities of toxic urban stormwater runoff and agricultural drainage. Salinity, herbicides, pesticides, fuel, and other petroleum products wash into urban storm drains and are directly discharged to the delta. Recently, state and federal regulators have been able to attribute much of this toxicity to the overuse of pyrethroids, a common chemical found in household garden pesticides. Non-native alien species also play a significant role in the decline of the estuary's fisheries. The delta is considered to be one of the most invaded estuaries in the world, with more than 185 alien aquatic and plant species. Invasive species now represent at least 95% of the biomass in the delta, and new invasive species will continue to arrive. Non-native largemouth and striped bass pose a particularly significant threat in the estuary. Many of these predators were planted in the delta for sport and recreational fishing purposes, with little concern for the native species they now endanger, such as salmon, delta smelt, and steelhead. Estimates vary on the total population effects of predation, but scientific studies have found that the range could be anywhere from 5 to up to 50% of winter-run salmon and delta smelt that are consumed by the striped bass. Many experts now believe largemouth bass pose a growing and even more significant threat to native endangered species. Exacerbating the problem has long been the state's misguided policy to protect and maintain the populations of these predators through the use of size and bag limits. Recently, the Coalition for a Sustainable Delta and other water users filed a case against the California Department of Fish and Game related to the management of striped bass. In a settlement agreement, the department agreed to collaborate with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the United States Fish and Wildlife Service to develop a joint regulatory proposal that will address the impacts of sport fishing regulations on the population of non-native striped bass in the Delta. Other invasive culprits causing a major threat to the Delta are two tiny invasive clams. The overbite clam and the Asiatic clam represent a great threat to the estuary by competing with native species for a limited food supply. These invasive clams are thought to have been introduced to the Delta from the ballast water discharged by commercial shipping vessels that frequent local ports. Continuing to address these non-native species and others stressing the Delta habitat will be key to creating a sustainable Delta for the future. The old Delta paradigm focused almost exclusively on federal and state pumping operations as the cause of the Delta decline, while other factors and stressors were ignored. It is increasingly clear, however, that simply turning down the pumps won't solve the Delta crisis. A renewed focus to determine the reasons for the decline and how to better sustain the estuary is being led by the Delta Stewardship Council, which has been tasked with creating an overarching Delta plan that achieves the co-equal goals of ecosystem restoration and water supply reliability. Separately, a Bay Delta Conservation Plan is being developed through a collaboration of state, federal, and local water agencies, state and federal fish agencies, environmental organizations, and other interested parties. These organizations have joined together with the goal of identifying water flow and habitat restoration actions to recover endangered and sensitive species and their habitats in the Delta. Obviously, failure is not an option. The economic prosperity and quality of life of all Californians is dependent on finding and addressing the root causes of the Delta crisis. The cost of inaction is simply far too great. Critical issues that have been historically ignored, such as toxins, invasive species, predation, and unscreened and unregulated diversions, must be tackled. The Coalition for a Sustainable Delta is working to address these and other problems through education, cooperation, research, and where necessary, legal action. For more information about the Delta, the Coalition, and our activities, please continue to explore the rest of the content on our website at sustainabledelta.com.